Well, the honeymoon is over. You got Buddy out there shitting himself. Draymond looks like Tyson in the Jake Paul fight out on the perimeter, right? And Steph looks like he's just playing pickup ball. He's just tossing it around, it go in, whatever. Nah, man. Very frustrating last two games. And if you were paying attention, they didn't look good in the Pelicans game either. And I know they had, 4 games in 7 days or 6 days or something like that. Some of this is scheduling and maybe just hitting a little bit of a wall in the season. But ultimately, the team is being exposed for some of the holes that it has. And when you look at this Brooklyn Nets team, who's kind of like Clippers East in the sense of got a bunch of bucket getters, they're going to play small, they're going to switch everything. And you saw right away the ball pressure bothered the Warriors, who just didn't look ready to play. Let's be honest. They didn't look like they gave the appropriate fear, as Kerr likes to call it, to this young Nets team, and they paid the cost for it. The Nets are undermanned on the back end of a back-to-back, but right away you see the ball pressure. Brooklyn's like, hey, you can't go around us. We're just going to ball pressure you. And that's where missing Kuminga and Melton is really exposing when they have to play that style. When the handoffs and the split cuts and all this action isn't working because they're switching everything, how do you punish that style? Well, with Kuminga and with Melton. Steph, 28 points, 8 threes, 6 or 7 assists. Don't let the stats fool you. He was trash last night. He really was. And the entire team was. Who played well? I'm trying to think. GP2, maybe, right? Like, there's just always this trickle-down effect from the top. And Steph and Draymond, whether it's fatigue or they're having a hard time finding interest in the games now at this point in the season, it's almost as if they came out the first 10 games and it was like, look at us, we're back, and got the NBA world to take notice again. And now they're just like, they can't get up for these games. And again, they didn't give the Nets their proper respect. But defensively is my issue right now. Defensively is the issue. Not only is it the same urgency, but you're also seeing teams counter what we did early on, right? The blitzing, the aggressive traps early on were so successful. And even when there were moments where it was like, dang, if you see a team that's shooting the three well, this could get ugly, right? So they're not doing it as much, but what teams are doing to counter it as well is they're coming up and setting a flat ball screen, meaning where the screener doesn't choose which side, they kind of set it flat, and then the guard with the ball, it kind of waits, like, am I going to reject this screen or am I going to use it? And what it does is it stalls any trap that would be coming, any blitz. You can't blitz it because then they just reject the screen. And so that's backed the blitzes off, and it's also caused hesitation. So then in the second half last night, they start switching everything. But they're not connected switching, and they're not communicating like we'd seen in the past and in years past. And so now it's creating all these other windows for 3-point shots, and the Nets are that classic team of, hey, we're going to just 3-ball you. And we may not be as talented, we may not supposed to win this game, but if we get hot from 3, we might, right? Modern basketball. Now, Kerr, listen, man, Kerr never passes an opportunity up to play small, right? And then in the second half, in those minutes where the game got away from us, he rolls Looney and Slow-Mo out together. Now, I get you don't have Kuminga, you don't have Melton, and we'll talk about maybe trying to fix that here in a second. But I didn't love those substitution patterns towards the end. It felt off. You might as well have just stuck with Moody since he was the hot hand. And let's shout out Moody. Let's acknowledge his first Moody monsoon of the season. And I think that's the type of player Moody is. We've seen this in spurts in these first 3 years in his career. He's a volume guy. Now, is he always going to get that volume? Probably not, right? But for him to have 6 minutes here, 4 minutes here, 2 shots, 1 shot, that's not his game. He needs to be out there and feel the floor, feel some contact, touch the ball, and he can give you these outbursts. And so how do you nurture that more? Well, you got to play him more. And last night, I think was a perfect opportunity to play him more in that second half. Goes without saying, Kuminga would have feasted on all those switching, right? And Kuminga could have played the 5, but I wasn't in love with the rotation. But I think big picture, what it does represent is the end of the 12-man rotation. Obviously, you got to get JK back, hopefully, for the OKC game. But, I'll read this comment to you here. Was this someone posted this here? Y'all, I read the comments. I don't respond to all of them, but keep posting them and maybe you'll you'll get on one of the shows or one of the episodes just for comment channel. This blowing leads thing starting to become an issue. First with Houston, right? They got away with that. Then OKC, they had a 30-point lead, survived that, right? It almost happened again with Memphis. Now they lost 2 games, San Antonio and Brooklyn, after leading by 17 plus points. It's losing stupid games that make you go from a playoff team to a play-in team. Facts, right? But what that leads me to is the 12-man rotation. And I think that this kind of represents the end of it. I think part of the issue in these second halves is no one knows what the rotation is going to be. In the first half, sometimes it could be matchup dependent, but we kind of have an idea of what it's going to be. Second half, all bets are off. Like Her's like, he's just trying things still. And to be fair to him, we'd had so much success in these first 15 games. Okay, fine, but the jig is up. I think he's going to have to lock in more on the rotations because some of the miscommunication, some of the how many offensive possessions where they don't even get a shot up, never mind a turnover, just because it's kind of like, oh, I thought you were going to back cut, and I thought, and there's just not as much chemistry that has been able to develop because there's constantly guys switching in and out of these lineups, right? And that's not to say, oh, Looney's getting iced out of the rotation. It could be on a night-to-night basis. You're playing a big team. Okay, this is a Looney game. Looney's getting 20, right? But to just do it on the fly is starting to cost the team chemistry and being able to close these games out. Obviously, you need a second. I won't say a second scorer. Wiggs has been a second scorer. It's not even a second scorer. We need a go-get-a-bucket guy. And ironically, you just saw 2 of them that could be available for the Brooklyn Nets, right? Let's start with Cam Thomas. Not a huge fan, right? Like, I had mentioned this in the video last week, right? He is being miscast. Like, he's kind of their lead guard right now. Cam Thomas is Lou Will, right? You bring him off the bench, 5-6 minute blocks, and you just let him cook. You just clear out and let him cook. But if he is like the face of your team and he's the lead of your team, I think that ultimately it hurts your chemistry and synergy because I don't know if I've ever seen a greedier player. It's he's amazing to watch. He's a bucket, but he is about as greedy a player as I've ever seen as far as shots and shot selection. And that's where their coach, right? We get up 18, Cam sits, and that's when the run came because then the ball started skipping around, right? And yeah, man, they gotta, we can talk about bigs. Now we're gonna talk about acquiring one of these guys. I understand a big ultimately is going to allow the Warriors to guard the 3-point line better. We've got guys coming off the strong side corner. Draymonds roaming. Listen, let's just have this uncomfortable conversation about Draymond because what was it 2 weeks ago? And Fitz is spewing this defensive player of the year stuff. He had the Zion stops in the games. Draymond has been awful defensively. He has been trash. And I hope he sees this. I'm calling you out, Draymond, so you can step it up, bro, because there's a difference between being clever in the scouting report and daring a young kid to shoot the shot and just being lazy. And I see laziness from you defensively. You're roaming, your free safety stuff, you're resting on that and you're being lazy. And so that's the start of it defensively. But yes, we need some rim protection behind that. But guys they're not paying attention to what's happening. And it feels like our defense is not modern. And we're still so worried about protecting the paint, and you're seeing more and more now, you're getting sprayed from the arc and you're losing these games late. You're losing these games late because we don't have a modern defense. Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder would solve a lot of these offensive drought problems. We'd solve a lot of problems. Obviously, he's not a big man. He's not going to help that way. But the droughts offensively, getting guys better shots, free throw line, he would solve a lot of issues if they could get a hold of Dennis Schroeder. In the prime of his career, his contract's like $13, $14 million, but the issue is he's having a career year. Half the league wants Dennis Schroeder. So I imagine they're going to get a haul for him, first-round pick and a young player. You willing to give that up? You willing to give up Kuminga? That's too far. That would make it too much of a sidestep, in my opinion, because you're giving up one of the guys that is the shot creator in these scenarios and that you need to get another one, albeit Schroeder more advanced at this point in his career. But his ability, when he turns the corner, it's death. the hezzy hang, and he tore us apart, right? He got anywhere he wanted on the floor. We couldn't, we have to help. There was one point in the second quarter, I'm doing my patron breakdown. That's out right now, by the way. The link is in the description. I went in. You can tell I'm in a foul mood about this. But there was like 3 or 4 possessions in a row where I'm like, yo, we had to help every dude that touched the ball. They pass to one dude. Watford gets downhill. Boom, we got to help on him. He swings it to the other guy. Zaire gets downhill. We got to help on him. We couldn't keep anybody in front of us. And so, yes, there's holes and there's issues that could help that, but you got to start with just urgency and coming back to playing with the energy they started the season with. Was it sustainable? Was it fool's gold? Maybe a little bit, but not this. This is too extreme. The lack of urgency here is too extreme. So they got to get back to that. And then, yes, can they get Schroeder? Can they get another shot creator? Melton, right, is gone for the year. Otherwise, it would have been him. And yeah, man, I'm calling out Draymond defensively. You was talking all this big stuff about defensive player of the year. You know it. You've been horrible. You've been horrible. And Steph just as well. I don't care if Steph's shooting. You got to do the other things. The margin for error isn't as great as it once was, y'all. And I get it. Some of this is age. Like, I'm probably overreacting here, but I needed a venting video because, yeah, it's getting frustrated. Then you look ahead, Thunder, Denver, Phoenix, Minnesota. You know what I mean? You can come back down to earth real quick here in the standings, and it's going to get jumbled up. I think we all knew we weren't going to run away with the Western Conference, but big picture, they got to get back to playing with that urgency. And December 15th is really that date where these trades are going to, really be possible, because that's the date where a lot of these guys that just signed a contract or had already been traded are going to be re-eligible to be traded. So circle that date. And yeah, I expect a much better effort against the Thunder Wednesday night in San Francisco. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.